Thank you so much for having me with you this morning. What a joy and privilege. I love people, so I'm just always pleased. Lots of people. Quite simple, really. And I do love research, and I love Jesus, so we're all good. I find that research helps us understand. Also sometimes help us understand the words of Jesus. Would be great if you've got your Bibles. Oh, do you know what? I'm going to hand these so that they just go around. This is so that because I'll forget when I finish to tell you who we are or what happens with Hope or where to find us. So you'll find all that on one of those. And that means that if I forget, you've got a reminder of who Hope is and what we get up to so you can find us. It's really simple. We have an e-news. I know loads of people have an e-news, but hey, you don't have to read it all the time, but you can dig in sometimes, and at least then you can stay in touch with what we're looking at, what's happening, and find out more. So, great. If you've got your Bible with you, we're going to read a really, really familiar passage, which is Matthew 9. And you're going to know this passage very well. Matthew 9, starting at verse 35. And Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. And when he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." Familiar passage? Preached on it many times? Probably. How's the harvest where you are? Just think about it for a few minutes. How's the harvest where you are? How's it going? Does it feel plentiful, or does it feel rock solid, or what's going on where you are? Even just buzz with the people next to you. How's the harvest where you are? How do you feel? If you had to use a word to describe the harvest, which word would you use? Great. Would you use the same word as Jesus? I had somebody say hopeful out there. That's a good start. Now, it's really interesting because I think, so we did Talking Toddlers. We've done Talking Jesus in 2015 and 2022. And we've begun to see a difference between 15 and 22 that some of you, if you've tracked with us, will have seen as well. That more people are open to Jesus now than they were in 2015. And I'm guessing that you are beginning to see that a bit where you are. But when we first started talking about it at the beginning of 22, people were still going, oh, I don't know. But now as I'm moving around and talking, more people are going, oh, yeah, no, actually, there's more interest, there's more. Do you know what? These words of Jesus, they could just be true. Radical, I know, radical thought, words of Jesus could be true. So really, I've come to tell you today that the words of Jesus are true. Great, you got that far. But it's really interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes we do doubt the words of Jesus. And on this passage, we could easily have doubted the words of Jesus. But actually, there is something happening, and it's happening now. And we're just beginning to pick up the wind of it. It's a bit like, do you know the film, and you know Narnia, where Aslan begins to move, and the ice and the snow begins to recede, and spring begins to come. And everyone's getting really excited. And there is that sense in the UK right now that God is on the move. And so if that's all you take away, that's great. But really, God is on the move, and the harvest that we used to describe as, oh, it's really hard, something is happening. Something is just happening. And it is, I think, there's just this beginning of spring. And there's a whole host of reasons for that, which we'll have a look at. But today, I'm going to dig into one segment of our population and look at the plentiful harvest in that segment. And that is from the Talking Toddler research. Now, why toddlers? Why did we do this piece of research? So what happened was we would looked at Talking Jesus and begun to see something. There's some interesting things in Talking Jesus. People are more open to faith if they have been through a life event. Adults. So if you're 18 plus, you are more likely to be open to coming to faith if you have been through a life event. Be it positive or negative, it's the biggest single influencer in bringing an adult to faith is a life event. That's why we're seeing openness now, as we have together corporately, as a nation, we've been through quite a few life events. We've been through COVID, and we're now in an economic crisis. There are wars, rumours of wars. All of that is like us all going through some elements of trauma, and that opens people up. So if you imagine it like this, people get quite set in their views and ways, and by about the age of 25, they've made most of their major life decisions about how they will live their life. And it takes something that comes along and then knocks that to make them open again to examining things like faith. So if they've decided by the age of 25 that they're not a Christian, then it's going to take something to make them reopen and re-examine that. So that's just, you can see that if you look at something like the British Attitudinal Studies Survey, you can track cohorts of belief right the way through people's lives. You can see where the flex is. For example, how many of you came to faith before the age of 25? Please put your hand in the air and now look round the room. So you'll just see something there that we are fitting mostly with those statistics. So after the age of 25, a life event is very, very important. Now, when people give birth to a child, it's a life event. It's often, it's a massive life change that they are going through. And as a result of that massive life change, they begin often to ask questions. So it opens them up more likely to consider thinking about faith, or is there a God, or what am I going to do with this child? How do I bring them up? Well, I don't really know. I don't feel equipped. Who could help me? And it is in that opportunity that the church has an extraordinary opportunity. So when I first went to so we work with a really prestigious research company when we do this research. It's not just me sending out things to all my mates, trying to get people to fill it out. We work with Savanta Comres. And so the results of this, if we have a first slide up, the results of this have all come from Savanta. They have worked with us and they've actually produced this report for us. So when we first went to them, and I said, what I want to do is I want to look at the reach of the church to this age bracket. So I want to understand what our current reach is as the church in the UK to parents with children under the age of 5. And they're like looking at me like, how are we going to do that? I said, well, that's your job. My job is to come up with what I'm trying to find out. And these are the things I want to find out. I want to know how many parents with a child under the age of 5 are in touch with a church. Yep. And then I want to know how many of those, that's my first thing. What's the reach of the church to this demographic? And then I want to know how open that demographic are to finding out about Jesus. I'm an evangelist. That's what I want to know. They were like, Rachel, this could take us forever to find. And I said, I want to know if they've got contact with the church. We could be at this for hours. And I thought, I just don't know. I think there's a lot of toddler groups out there. Don't you? I just think there's quite a lot. I don't know how long it would take. So they're like, oh. Anyway, within a week, they were on the phone going, oh my word. This is extraordinary. Love it, don't you? Because they're not in touch with the church, so they don't travel around and see 1,000 toddler groups. Do you see? So they don't know. So they just imagine this bubble, the bubble they're in, and they have no concept of what's going on often on the ground. So they begin to do this research for us. And then they discovered the amazing, so I'm going to jump through to, you've got some of the background. You can read all of the detailed data. I would love for us to have a look at slide 9, if you can find that for me. And then I'm going to go backwards. Don't you love it? I like to add some confusion. Look at slide 9, and then you're going to see, which if you've got it, look at slide 9. This is that 62% of all of the parents with a child under the age of 5 are in a category called fringe parents. They are in touch with the church, but not regular worshippers. 12% are regular worshippers with their children. That is a 74% reach of one cohort in the UK population. So 74% of every single parent in the UK with a child under the age of 5 is in touch with a church. If we were a company, we'd be ecstatic. It's utterly extraordinary. It's beyond comprehension. This is why they came back to me going, oh my word. I'm like, this is bigger than I thought. You know, when you start, I thought we've got some reach here. I know we've got some reach, but I didn't know it was this big. So 74% of every single parent under the age of, parent with a child under the age of 5 is in touch with a UK church. Is that not incredible? We could do something with that, couldn't we? We really, really could be strategic and we could do something with that. And that is why this message is so important. We do need to be intentional and we do need to be strategic. Otherwise, we will just miss it. Because often, these things are either playgroup, toddler group, things like that we don't even hardly know. Like sometimes, you know, it's the wonderful people who run them. We haven't been in touch for a long time. They are under-resourced. They're doing their best. They've got a waiting list that's going off the page because so many people want to come. And we're busy doing something else. We really are often. Talk about a plentiful harvest. Talk about a plentiful harvest. So if I was a church planter, this is where I'd start. If I was a church planter, this is where I'd start because everything collides. So the other important factor in this is that you are often a bit younger if you're having a child. And the younger you are, the more open you are to faith. So you've got a life event and you've got the fact that people are younger. And then you've got the child. We've got a 74% chance of helping every under 5-year-old in the UK to learn to pray. Just going to say that again. We've got a 74% of, what an incredible opportunity. I don't know when I came to faith from earliest memory. They've got a little song, shows my age, tape recordings of me singing to Jesus. Theologically, absolutely, hilarious. But beautiful. When I was 3, Jesus was my friend. He really was my friend. Age 3, I had a fully I couldn't have told you the theology of salvation or redemption or anything. I could guarantee you that I could tell you that Jesus was my friend and I talked to him and that he loved me. That's enough, isn't it? So we are in touch with 74% of all the under 5s in the country. Imagine if every single one of those had a living encounter with Jesus and learnt to pray and worship and understand some basic Bible stories. Where would we be in 20 years' time? Where would we be in 20 years' time? Yeah. We wouldn't even be here having this conversation. We wouldn't, I go do things on church growth, and I'm like, well, we could just start here, people. We could really focus in and we could reach 74% of one generation, because this is an entire generation that we've got within reach. And their parents come along and we give them a nice custard cream and a cup of tea. Very lovely, but what about Jesus? And often they came. They didn't come for the custard cream. It's really interesting, isn't it? Just what we've done with this. So I now want to just skip back now 2 slides to slide 7. These are the groups, so that we can have a little look at, if we look at slide 7, we can have a little group at these groups. If you've got that on your thing, that might make more sense. So there are active Christian parents within this group. Then there are the fringe parents, which is our massive outreach opportunity. And then there are unreached parents. These are the ones not in contact with the church. Each one of these, I'm also going to reflect on the child. So the research was obviously done with adults. We couldn't actually get the under 5s to do the research. But obviously, as you know, what a parent does is influential for your child, isn't it? So these are the 3 groups, and we are going to have a little look at those 3 groups. So I'm now going to jump to slide 11, which is where we're going to have a little begin to dig into that big group of fringe parents. So these are the parents that are not part of our worshipping communities on a Sunday, but are bringing their children to things that our churches do. So let's understand them a bit better so that we can really reach out to them. So more than half of the parents of children under 5 have tertiary education. Maybe the next slide. Try that, number 11. We'll come back to that one, or we might not. Lovely. You might need to look at this on your phones because it's a bit detailed. So you're looking at slide 11. More than half of the parents of children under the age of 5 have tertiary education, 55%. I just checked that because I thought, is it of point of interest or not? Actually, in this age bracket, if you look at the 18 to 35-year-olds, it's about the same. So it's nothing peculiar. Do you see what I mean? 55, about half of 18 to 35-year-olds have all got tertiary education in the UK. So that is actually quite normal reflection. But 3 in 4 of them work full-time or part-time. That's where we do need to take note. And if we have a little look at that, can you have a little look at working? So 57% of them are working full-time. 57% of them are working full-time. And that's, we're mostly in touch here with the highest proportion of these are women. So it's often the women who are getting in touch that we have the connection with more than the men. You all know that. That is nothing unusual, is it? So we're in touch with the women, with their children, but a lot of those women work full-time. So we have got this contact, but we have got to think about how we reach people who are in full-time work with their children. Does that make sense? So maybe some of our models haven't taken that into consideration. So when is a good time to do something with them? So some of them are sending their children to a church preschool. Some of them are managing to juggle their jobs and get to a toddler group. But some of them are going to be in full-time work. So we need to consider that in this outreach. Look at marital status. I just think that's interesting. 52% of them are married. Only 52% are married. But 20% are cohabiting. So the majority are in a relationship. Only 9% are in civil partnerships. So the majority are probably a man-woman relationship with their children, of which 52% are married. So that's just, again, to have in your mind. So what I'm saying is, we're in touch with the woman, but there is a father. So there's another whole challenge here of how do we reach those fathers. So this is what, how can I put it? We're going to look at the scale of the opportunity, and then we have to strategically look at how we then make this opportunity into its absolute max. Does that make sense? You're all leaders, you're good at this. So we're going to... Well, this is almost what this morning is. Pause, breathe. I know it's really busy out there, but what could we intentionally do if we took this data seriously? Great. Okay. So, now I'm going to... It's all right, my laptop's... It's all right, doing well. So that is something about these parents. So we know that they are fringe parents. They're mainly women. 71% of them are women. 4 in 5 of them have a child aged 13 months to 4 years old. That's what we were looking for. The reason they've got other age children is because, of course, if you've got one child, you've often got another one. So that other child could be older. So you might have a child who's under the age of 5 and a child who's 10 even. Do you see what I mean? It could be a whole raft of where the ages of which your children fall. And a lot of them they have got some form of employment. So they're not all just at home waiting for us to call. And that's that point. That's why we're looking at it. Okay, let's have a look at slide 19. The activities attended in details. They attend, on average, 2.4 activities in the past 12 months. I mean, some of them are regular. We're going to have a look at that in a sec. And they're most often going to the regular things like a toddler group or a preschool play group, and then the annual festivals. We know, anyone do a Christingle? Anyone done a Christingle? Okay, even if you've never done one, find out how to do Christingle. You'll be overwhelmed with numbers of people who will come. So my wonderful brother-in-law started doing Christingles in a Baptist church. It's probably quite an Anglican thing, it's the thing with the orange. Overwhelmed, had to just run up piles and piles of Christingle services because everybody wanted to come to a Christingle service. So there's something they've got in their head that this is the Christmas service for children. So a Christmas service for that age bracket will be really popular. And then you've got to link it out. So it's an orange with a candle in it and a ribbon around it and some sweets, that stuff. But hey, if that's what people want to come to, no trouble for Elim churches to run a Christingle. So that's what I'm saying. So that is, making our festivals really suitable for this age bracket will see incredible results, both Christmas and Easter. Both Christmas and Easter, if you look at the under fives and you go, we're going to target them with an event, they'll rock up. We were completely swamped in our church for fireworks, and it was one of my more embarrassing moments. So we did this whole craft thing for this age bracket, and they all came in, they were doing crafts, and there was somebody serving hot dogs, and then there was a little fire pit with lots of supervision around the marshmallows, more buggies than you could possibly imagine. We hadn't actually created enough space for the buggy park, and we're in the middle of London, so this isn't, we're not in absolute heartland of family land, if you see what I mean. So we did far too many buggies, and then I kept saying to everyone as they came in, do stay, I can't remember, at 5:30 is the fireworks. Well, because we hadn't quite scaled to the scale of the thing that it turned up with, I think there may have been one firework. I'm like, if we do this again, can we please spend some money on the fireworks? Because it's really embarrassing if everyone gets lined up. Boo! Choo! Yes, that's the end of the fireworks. But, it's just we hadn't quite expected the numbers that rocked up, and therefore we had to, boop, boo. Anyway, they were all lovely. They absolutely loved it. They were thrilled that we'd done something. They'd eaten all the donuts, the hot dogs. We ran out of craft material, and they were actually quite happy with their one firework. So, bless them. So actually, it's not that difficult, is what I'm saying. Even if you only got a budget for one firework, they'll still rock up and be grateful. I mean, they were thrilled to be out of the house and have something that entertains the children, I think, as well. But what I'm trying to say is, so the annual festivals are really important if we work strategically with those. But you've got to think about them. They will need something they'll need something bespoke for an under 5-year-old. They don't sit down. They're all over the place. The buggy park needs to be enormous, and you need quite a number of volunteers to sort it out. But it's been really fruitful. We've done that, and then we do Christmas in a really interactive way, and that's been really, really popular. So we're trying to up our game where we are. And you wouldn't put us down as a big family. Some of you might do this already. Do you all do this already? And you're like, Rachel, we're so knocking this out the park. So basically, that group, they love toddler groups, and they love preschool play groups, and they'll come along to your annual festival. But what can we max out on that to make this stronger? So yes, that's great. They all came along to fireworks, Rachel, and we have seen some families have, just a couple. We've been beginning to make links that they'll come along because we can explain that church is suitable for their children. Their children will not have to just sit in a row. We will work with them. Let's have a look at slide 20, and you'll see the biggest impact of toddler group. If you look at slide 20, 46% of these fringe parents are going to toddler groups. Nearly half of the contact is through a toddler group. That's why we strategically have decided we'll focus on toddler groups more than anything else. What is happening in the toddler group? So I went to an amazing denomination, was working and talking across with all their leaders, who you would think were absolutely right on it when it comes to this sort of thing. And I said, and they were just like, after this research, their jaws dropped, and they went, we took all of our Christian input out of our toddler groups. And I'm like, you did what? just trying to get my head around it. We took all of our Christian content out of our toddler group. I'm like, put it back in. They said, yes, we're going to, on a massive scale. They did it because they, again, it's so intriguing, isn't it? They had listened enough to the drip feed, which was saying, if you are too overtly Christian, people won't come, they'll feel uncomfortable. That is the drip feed. I don't know who started that drip feed, but it's wrong. It's complete misinformation. So they took so that everyone would feel comfortable, and they were trying to sort of work one-on-one with people. I'm like, and you're going to see, we've surveyed these people. There's another whole piece of research that we did in the Church of England as well about distinctively Christian toddler groups. And the toddler groups that were loved the most were the most distinctively Christian. The ones where every song was a worship song, every Bible story was a Bible story, where it was a praise party, every toddler group. They were the most loved toddler groups. Even the atheists were really happy. Even the atheists were really happy. No one was offended. Nobody left. Nobody left when they started to do Christian content because they came to the church. They'd come to the church. They'd given birth to a child. They don't know which way is up. They're hoping for some help with this God stuff. And we give them a custard cream. And so they're sitting there going, oh, okay, I don't know, okay. And we're sitting there going, well, if they want to know, they'll ask. We're very British, aren't we? If they want to know, they'll ask. Well, if they want to, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. We'll just, I'm too busy anyway. Do you see what I mean? So we sort of have this ridiculous standoff, almost. So basically, you can turn the temperature right up. You can make your toddler group church. So what would toddler church look like? Some of you might be doing this already. But what would toddler church look like? How Christian can you make this? Because they're not going to leave. Just going to say that again. They are not going to leave. And if you're not running a toddler group, you're going to start toddler church, toddler worship, toddler praise parties, toddler anything. They're going to come. I guarantee you. And it might be that you also need to work out in your neighbourhood, and you could even do a survey. You could go around, find out where people are and ask them about what time of day is suitable, what day is suitable. This is where the birth of Messy Church, if you look at that stat again on number 20, you'll see that Messy Church is 20%. Where did Messy Church come from? It was basically a lovely lady called Lucy Moore. I don't know if you've ever met Lucy or seen Lucy. Lucy went along and asked the people in her toddler group, if we ran church, what would church have to... Would you like to come to church? Well, we would, but we can't make our children sit still. Okay, you tell me what church needs to look like, and we'll do church that way. So this is what they said. Our children cannot sit still. Interestingly enough, we don't want to be separated from our children. We work full time. We only get 2 days with our children. Don't take our children away into a room where we don't know what's happening. We wish to be with our children. So let us be with our children. We'd like to know, really happy with Christian faith content. Maybe some activities. They can't sit still. And if you really want to go to town, we'd absolutely love to have tea and then just take them straight home to bed. Messy Church. So they do. It's at like 4:00, isn't it? And you do the craft activities and you do Bible stories and you do prayers and then there's tea and everyone takes them home to bed. So she built a church around what their reply was. And for that group of people, that was church. 4:00, Sunday afternoon, loads of craft activities, songs, Jesus, Christian story input, tea. You can take your kids home now and go to bed. That's why 20% of people, so Message, obviously quite a new phenomenon, is actually rocking up here. But it's how seriously are we going to be missionaries? So that is honestly the question, isn't it? How seriously are we going to be missionaries? It will not suit probably you. Your world's worst church service. Great, we have 100 under 5s with their parents, and they're coming for me covered in glue. I get it. If you don't have children, you've grown through that stage. I thought I'd left that behind me. But it's a real missionary opportunity. And then we have to think, what do we do to keep growing that? What does that look like as children grow up? So we're going to have a little look at now some other things from this wonderful group. I'm not going to do that slide or that. So they come regularly. That's the other big thing, is that they are mostly coming regularly. If they do come, they're coming regularly. So this fringe group are coming regularly to our toddlers, and most of those would probably welcome an invite to something that looks child-friendly for church. Do you know what I mean? They're not no's. Let's have a look at, so they're coming regularly, on a regular basis. So, and I want to have another look at, why did they come? Let's just, I can't even see the number of that. Reasons for attending. They come because they think their children will enjoy it. They come so their children can make friends. And then they come that their children might learn good values. And they think we as a Christian church are the number one place probably to do good values. So that's why they're coming. But they also, so if we look at slide 25, you can see a whole drop down on that. Slide 25. So, they are not going to come to something that their child is not going to enjoy. I'm just going to say that again. That's what we did. You remember you sat through an incredibly long service. I was brought up in the Brethren. And you sat through a very long service and you couldn't wait really for it to end when you were small, and then you got a chocolate. But you have to be a really committed Christian to put for your children to understand that and for you to take your children. If you're not, which is what this group are, they are just not going to do that. Does that make sense? They want to know that their children are going to enjoy this experience. That is their number one priority. So what we do has to be child-focused if we're going to be a missionary. It's really simple. We might sit there going, well, but it just doesn't work like that, because their number one thing is that their child will enjoy it. Okay, but they still have a real interest in other things that they're interested in. I'm just going to show you about, should reorder these really. If they're 18 to 28, next slide, they want to know what it looks like before they'll come. So something about, next slide is 26. Sorry, no, it's slide 26. The fringe parents really want to see what it's going to look like. So actually, if you do run something like a messy church or a toddler group, it's really hard to film because you've got GDPR, but maybe even someone talking through about what it looks like is a really good invitation. This is like, how we've got online for the pandemic, online church? This age bracket have joined us because they could see what we look like, which they can do with anything else. Does that make sense? They can see what we look like. Now, this building is great, but how can you see what we're doing in here unless you look online? This, I know, I can tell by all your gadgets, you must be streaming. So people get a good idea of what you're doing. It's the same kind of principle. People want to see in that age bracket what would happen. What is this? They have no concept of what even a messy church is. Does that make sense? What does this look like? Maybe even a film before it starts. This is the craft tables. This is where we're going to do food. And now we're going to look at slide 27. This is amazing. 84% of these fringe parents felt welcome. They felt welcomed by the church. So, going back to that huge reach, we're doing an extraordinarily good job. Somebody is doing an amazingly good job in this area. When did you last say, if you have got a toddler group, when did you last say thank you to your toddler group leaders? They're on the forefront of mission. They need everything you've got. We run a toddler group network with the EA online. We meet once a term. We've had people crying when we've said thank you to them. They said, nobody has ever thanked us for this ministry. Nobody's ever resourced us. No one's ever thanked us, but we do it because we believe in its importance. But like the church, whoever's leading those has never thanked them. They're just ploughing on. And it's been so moving when they've literally cried online as we've decided to thank them. Who am I to thank them? But I felt somebody needed to. Really moving. 84% of these fringe parents feel genuinely welcomed by the church. That in itself is amazing, isn't it? Yeah. And then 55% of them has said it has helped them explore their own beliefs. That's huge. We're not talking a minor thing here. It's over half of these fringe parents, because they've come along to either a toddler group, preschool, playgroup, something with their children. When they're coming with their children, they have examined their own beliefs. Now, when you put into the equation that some of our best toddler groups in the country only do custard creams and don't do Jesus, it's amazing that 55% have explored their belief. Do you see? So if we upped the content, more of them would. Would you like to be in touch with some people who, who don't yet follow Jesus, but actually want to explore their own beliefs? Would you like that opportunity? How many churches? We'd love that opportunity, wouldn't we? It's almost like this is. So we've forgotten these people. I don't know what we thought was going on over there. Sort of over there on a Wednesday morning run by Mabel, there's this whole missionary movement. And then we're over here trying to do a strategy on how to reach people for Jesus. It's like we have this disconnect. Does that make sense? And so when you talk to the toddler group leaders, they're like, often the leader of the church has never even visited They've never been once. It doesn't fit in their category and they don't really like small children. And I've seen, we had an amazing guy on who actually decided he would grow his church. He was a church, he would grow his church through toddler groups, so he was there every week, making contacts, and that is how he's grown his church, because he went. He rocked up. The pastor's here today. If there's anything you want to be prayed for, please go and talk to John. He's here today for you. You know, coffee, tea, and, you know, he'll pray for you, he'll talk to you. Fantastic. What an opportunity. But it's like we sit there trying to have a strategy. I think sometimes we have an ideal person we want to reach. I don't know who they are. But maybe this group just doesn't measure it. But really, that is 55%. And that's not even mentioning the children. That's not even mentioning the children. Get pretty excited. So that's slide 28, and that is slide, and that's then slide 29. So slide 29 is, did it help? Okay. Quite a lot of these parents also identify as Christian. So you do get, there is a higher percentage of people who are in this age bracket who have children identifying as Christian than in this age bracket who don't have children identifying as Christian. Are you with me? So basically, there's almost a marker that if you have some identification or connection to the Christian faith, you are probably more likely to have a child than not. So there's something here. There's a cultural connection to Christianity that goes with having a stable unit and having children. So again, that's why they're more open to us. They actually do want their child. This is slide, I can't see. It says spiritual habits. If you can find the spiritual habits slide. Half the parents find it important their child has basic knowledge of Bible stories. Well, I think we could help with that, couldn't we? Any of you got any basic knowledge of Bible stories here? So let me just go through this. So there's 64% of this cohort in the population, of which 55% have both examined their own beliefs because they've been in this context with us, or they actually want their child. They want their child to have Bible story content. You wouldn't believe that if you were just listening to the mainstream media, although you might just. It's just switching in mainstream media, isn't it? We're just beginning to see that what we're picking up on the ground is getting back into mainstream media. They're just playing a little bit more for us. 55%. They just want to know how to do Easter with a toddler. And they don't know how to do that. They've got no idea how to do it. So we could help them, couldn't we? This is Easter for the under fives. If you know the under fives, you'll love it. These are the Happy Land characters from the Entertainer Toy Store and the Early Learning Centre. The amazing man who runs the Entertainer Toy Store, he loves Jesus, and so he has given us the right to use their toys, because this is like probably one of the biggest toys for this age bracket, to tell the stories of the Bible to this age bracket with their favourite toys. Think we could manage that, couldn't we? What's more, there's an animation and a song. So you can watch the story, read the story to them, and you can sing it with actions, everyone. QR codes included. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Kevin. QR codes included, but it is the Bible, just for under fives. Basically, we're working our way through the Bible. It's hilarious. We've done creation, we've done Revelation. We've done Christmas, we've done Easter, and we've done some others. Lost and Found is just coming out all the stories of Lost and Found. Why? Because why can't we give the opportunity to every under 5-year-old in the country to know why Jesus died at Easter? And their parents genuinely don't know how to tackle that. So let's get someone who's really good at it to do that for them, and then they can. And if you know anything about this age bracket, it's really good to have that parental thing where it's read. It's really good to watch it, another layer of learning. It's really good to play it, so they can have the Happy Land characters and they can reenact it, because then they're learning while they play. And it's really good to sing it. By the time they've done that, we will have a generation of people who actually know why Jesus died. Wouldn't you like that? A whole generation growing up who know why Jesus died. Anyone up for that? Yeah. Fabulous. So it's quite simple, really, with their favourite toys. So we did this because we saw the data, so we thought, what do we need? This is what we need. Great, we'll create it. So that's what we're creating. And they would like to explore religious beliefs. They would think it's important for their child, 54% think it's important for their child to explore faith. Isn't it staggeringly exciting? I've got no idea what time I started and what time I'm supposed to finish. So do wave, James, because we're slightly in free fall here with the excitement of it all. Great. I get really excited. I get really excited every time. Okay, finally, we've got this group. Oh, no, we haven't. We've got two unreached parents. So what about that group of people who didn't say yes? So if you look at slide 33, there's 25%, only 25%, of all the parents in the UK with a child under the age of 5 who are not in touch with the church. Only 25%. But of that 25%, I am just going to go to... what time am I supposed to finish? So now, somebody find out for me and let me know. I'll keep going. I'm going to go to slide 37. Slide 37. Let's have a look at slide 37. These are the unreached parents. These are the ones that we do not have contact with. If you go to slide 37. So they've never attended anything in the last 12 months. But 79% of them have never been invited. 79% of them have not been invited to anything. So how would they get there or find out about it? 18% were invited. And the most common reason for not going was it was an inconvenient time. So it wasn't like a huge objection. Most of them, it was an inconvenient time. But look at that. 35% of the unreached parents would have welcomed an invitation. So even of the group that aren't currently there, a third of them want to come. Talk about plentiful harvest field. That's knock it out of the park statistics, isn't it? Basically, there's hardly anybody with a parent under the age of 5 who doesn't really want to be part or connected to a local church in the UK. Basically. There's a tiny, tiny fragment of them. The vast, overwhelming majority would absolutely love to be in connection with the church. Isn't that amazing? When I saw that, I'm like, this is crazy. 35% would love an invite. Okay, so let's find out a little bit more about them. There's something interesting going on here. They are more likely to... they're more likely to be a bit young. They're more likely to be younger. They're more basically. We are really good at two groups. We're really good at reaching two groups. This is just huge general UK stats. So we're good at, if you've got a tertiary education, we're good at that. So you've got something above 18, whatever qualification it is, we're quite good at reaching you. And if you are deprived, we know how to reach you. We do that quite a lot. Our biggest issue is around sort of what I call the DE professions. So these are more plumbers, hairdressers, the people in those kind of professions. So they are the least reached people group in the UK. Because we're really good at degree and above, or tertiary education, and we're actually pretty good at marginalised because we run food banks and we do warm spaces, and therefore we get contacts with that group. And the group who don't need us as a social justice thing and who never met us, never met any of us through their social circles, because we're operating in a different social circle, don't have that connection. So again, we need to be strategic about how we could reach that group. So we see it in, so the least reached person in the country would be probably age 45, a white man, living in the Midlands, like driving a van. That would be our least reached person in the UK. Because we've actually got a lot of spread in other areas. Does that make sense? It's a very huge summary. So when you look at this, when you look at these stats, the reason we're not in touch with that group is we're not naturally, basically, they told us they didn't know any practicing Christians. That's what they told us. So they don't know us. Whereas we know we've got, so 53% of all of the non-Christians in the UK are in touch with a Christian. Because they know that they know a practicing Christian. You still with me? But this segment don't know a practicing Christian, so they don't know one of us to invite us. So we've got to find other means to get in contact with them. Be that finding a Facebook group Facebook group, being it going to the GP surgery and saying every time there is a baby born, we're running this, would you be able to let them have an invite? A lot of GPs practice will probably do that with you. If they, we're running a toddler group, would you please advertise this to every person who gives birth to a baby, would you give them an invite? And then we could put some little testimonies on it, a QR code where they could have a look online as to what actually happens. This is what happens in this group, this is when it happens. But so we've got to find ways to connect with them more strategically. But I love the fact that they want an invite, don't you? They want an invite. They're not there. So this is another misconception. We think people aren't in our church probably because they're all atheists. And that just isn't the case. They're not in our church because we just didn't invite them. Or we're not in connection with them. They don't know who we are. We've got this amazing couple. Who do extraordinary mission and evangelism in their town centre. But then their neighbour's husband died. And so they thought they'd start, they were like taking care of her, having over for things. They did a craft activity that she came to. They did a coffee morning activity that she came to. And eventually she sat them down one day and she said, look, what do I have to do to actually get to church? She really just wanted to go to church. But if she felt like she had to, pass craft activity, did I get a good enough mark on that or something? Do I have to do the craft activity 10 times before you might conceivably allow me to church? Aren't we funny? We did an open garden. I was telling James, we did an open garden. It's not me who does the gardening, it's someone else. It's not my husband either. We have a lovely volunteer who's just part of our church who loves gardening. So we did the National Open Garden Scheme. And I was chatting to one woman. I was standing outside inviting people in. One woman was on her way to a nail bar. She came back. So I've moved back into the neighbourhood. And we were chatting away. I said, come back. She came back with her partner. And then I was having a long chat with her. And I said, look, you could come to church. We do that every Sunday if you want to know people in the community. She said, I could come to church? Yeah, we're open to everybody. Wow, that's amazing. You see, we think people know they can come. They think we're like the, whatever club. Of which there's a whole tier of layers and a certificate, and maybe there's even an entrance exam or interview. Who knows? I don't know how you get to church. Do you know what I mean? She didn't know how you'd come to church. She hasn't got a clue that it's open to all. So I'm like, no, it's open to all. Everyone can come to church. You'd be so welcome. Oh, great. So I can't come this Sunday, but I would really like to come next Sunday. I'm just like, I'm a bit stunned. Do you see what I mean? Because even me, with all the stats, keeps forgetting. Because somehow or other, we've been trained in the school that everyone out there doesn't come because they're either a hardened atheist or they're just downright not interested. Do you see? Yeah. And they're out there going, I don't know what those people do, but that looks vaguely, maybe one day they might let me go. Unless you're really brave. And so I'm on a train and I'm going from Focus to the Ichthus Jamboree in the summer, and I'm on the train with my suitcase and it's got all my resources in it, and I haven't had much sleep and I'm a bit tired, and I've got on the train at the beginning, and then the next station in walks a family with a small child. He's making a lot of noise, so the whole snooze thing just isn't going to happen. And I'm like, now what is Tinkerbell doing? Anyway, she keeps going, whatever she's doing, and they're doing this and that, and da-da-da-da. And then I'm like, this little voice, you know the little voice, don't you? Rachel, in your bag, you've got Noah's Ark. You could give it to them. Oh, yeah, but they'll think I'm weird. They'll think I'm the weird Bible woman. Rachel, statistically speaking, you know they are the most open, likely candidates in the whole of the UK. Oh, yeah. They'll still think I'm a weird Bible woman. You are! Okay, yeah, you're right. So I pull out Noah's Ark and I smile and I say, oh, hello, I just wondered if your daughter would like to read this. We could read it. It's Noah's Ark. It's a story from the Bible. I don't know if you've ever read the Bible. Da, 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 da. So I sit there reading to think about, there's the penguins. I don't know if they had penguins in the ark. There's the penguins and this is here and this is Mr. Noah and he's building an ark to make sure all the animals are safe. And then the rain came. So I do the whole thing with her and she's happily amused for a little bit of the train journey and they're loving it. And then as I finish that and give her the book, the dad looks at me and he goes, it's so strange we should meet you today on this train. You're like, maybe not so. Because 2 weeks ago, for the first time in our lives, as a family, we decided to go to church. And I'm like, oh no, what happened? Which church did you go to? I've watched Tinkerbell, she doesn't sit still. How did that go? So I'm smiling like, oh, right, okay. What happened? Why did you do that? How did it go? So I hear his story. Church went fine. It was an evangelical church. She whooped after every song because that's what she does in nursery, but that was okay. Oh, phew. And he was like, we'd had the pandemic, he said, and that made me think. And I've had this child, and he said, I don't know if there's a God. I don't know if there's a God. But if there is a God, I don't want her to miss out. So I thought I should take her to somewhere where maybe they could help. I'm like, oh my word, you're statistically perfect. Can I film you? That isn't what I thought. But what a great story. Great story. And even me, with all the stats at my fingertips, that little voice kept saying, they'll think you're weird, they'll think you're weird, they'll think you're weird. God knows what he's doing, doesn't he? But that story is multiplied. I mean, what courage they took. They just plunged in through the doors of a random church with no invite. They are few and far between. They could have sat there with that questioning about God and got nowhere until you or I find them and invite them. And it's like it's now. The time is now for this. Because this doorway, this opportunity, this openness is now. So we know that people come to faith because of life events, and we've been through this collectively. We're staring at these extraordinary figures of the reach. And so what we need to do is make sure that we are all inviting. This task is a mega task of everybody. We're going to have just a little look at the active Christian parents. So if you look at... we're going to look at slide 44. So there's this 12% piece of that pie chart. So it's just a few things for you to know about this 12%. So these are our active Christian parents with a child under the age of 5. Exciting, eh? How can I explain this? So 6% normally of any cohort I would expect to fit my definition of a practicing Christian. Now, we created this definition, so it's not like they've used it because we created it. So the definition of a practicing Christian is that they are part of a worshipping community at least once a month. Standards have slipped. I went 5 times every Sunday and 3 times in the week in the Brethren, but never mind. At least once a month. Most of them actually are a bit more than that. They are actually more of them coming more regularly, more weekly. So they've got to come at least once a month to church. They've got to pray at least weekly and read their Bibles at least weekly. Okay? It's the Bible reading that absolutely slashes this to the core, by the way, if you're wondering. So, but of that segment, so 12% of this cohort are in that category, and we would normally expect 6% of any cohort. So we're already punching above our weight. So what this tells you and me is that we've got an amazing pool of missionaries already. We've got an amazing pool of missionaries to this age bracket because we're punching above our weight with them. So that is really exciting. So we're reaching them already. So we've got to connect our missionaries to our targets. Now, one of the strange things is that more of our Christian parents are in full-time work. So a lot of them are in full-time work, which is why they're not chatting the gospel in the toddler group, do you see? Because they're not there because they're at work. It's just a change that we've got. So we need to even ask them what would help them to do this task. Again, you could get like a focus group of them together to say, we want to help you, we want to back you, but we want to look at what you would actually come to. I remember I worked for a church way back, and none of the Christian mothers would even come to the toddler group because it was too noisy. It was full of all these outsiders. I was like, excuse me, could somebody just explain that to me again? So they met in one of their private homes on a different day. I'm like, what on earth is going on? I'm like, no, you're the salt. We need you over here, not over there. Oh, I don't want to do that. Too noisy, too many other people's children. Oh, my word. Anyway, we've got some of that kind of craziness. So we actually need to skill this team up. The good news about this team is that they are actually talking about their faith. They almost 9 in 10 of them, they have regular contact with non-Christian parents under 5 who are not in activities. So they are saying they're in contact with prospect parents. But what we need to remember is they are culturally in their culture bubble. So some of them might need to do some cross-cultural training to reach all of the prospect parents. And they say that they have asked and they do invite. We've seen that again in Talking Jesus. A lot of this age bracket, particularly our younger Christians, are actually on it. They are talking to their friends and they are getting out there and they are inviting. It's just that it might take more than one invite. So we need to keep encouraging them on the invite. But what we do know is that they're probably talking to people a bit like them. So they're probably other parents who are in full-time work, might have a tertiary education. Does that make sense? And so we've got to try to work out who the demographics are in wherever you're living. I don't know if you've looked at the census much where you are. The census is your friend. And you can go right into your postcode. You can find out what the people in your street believe. It's great fun. It's not stalking. You are genuine, so you can... You can look at postcodes, you can look at homes, you can look at streets, you can look at neighbourhoods, you can look at areas, and you can work out. So the things you need to know about your neighbourhood. You need to work out how many people tick that they're Christian. So if they've got cultural Christianity on their side, they're going to be warmer towards you. And they're already going to have some kind of knowledge of what you're talking about. So how many people are Christian? And then you can check how many atheists you've got and how many people have no religion. But remember, a lot of these people have no religion, but they'd really love to know more about the Christian faith. So no religion, a lot of them tick it now in the younger generation, does not mean not interested. Okay? So at least a third of people ticking no religion are really interested in the Christian faith. So, but you need to do that. So if you're like, oh my word, where do I start on the census? Find somebody who's good at data and ask them to profile your community or the area where you are. It will be really informative. You can find out what age brackets are in your community. You can find out you'll better find out, what level of professions people are. You can find out, faith questions. All of this is really helpful so that you can make intelligent, strategic decisions about where to aim and where to aim your resources and who to target. There is no point targeting the over 65s if you live in some areas because they're not there. Vice versa, the other way round. Do you see? So this is you need a community profile for the community you're trying to reach. And often what we do is we just meet a few people and then we think, oh, well, we'll target this group. Or someone's got a passion for it and that's all lovely. But as a church, we could be more intentional and strategic. So work out, how many parents with children under the age of 5 have you got in your locality? I'm guessing it will be a target demographic for many of you. What's that kind of profile? What does that look like? How many children are in your neighbourhood? You can see that you'll be able to work out what living is like, how many people are living in different houses. All this helps you. I went to one church that said they had no young adults in their church because they had no young adults they were Anglican in their parish. That's what they believed. So we don't have any in our church because we don't have any in our parish. And then what happened was a GP joined their church who had the same GP practice as the parish. And said, well, that isn't true because 50% of my GP practice are under the age of 35. They're just not in your church. And you don't socialize with them, so you just thought they didn't exist. So then they said, could somebody come and help them? So they had to grow something for a whole group that they hadn't even spotted or spied. So please, the census is your friend, because then all this information is your friend because it helps you to target what you're doing. They're doing a great job of inviting. They're doing a great job of inviting. They're doing it really well. They are inviting, but they're probably a little bit stuck in a bubble of their own. I've given you the Talking Jesus report as well, because this is where we're getting the information on openness or closeness to the gospel. The younger you go, the more open someone is, as I've said, to the gospel. Even as you saw here, most of us came to the faith under the age of 25. What does that tell us about evangelism? Some of the best things I've seen, so I'm just going to give you sort of more practical stuff and examples, and we'll have some questions. So I was speaking on some of this with the Salvation Army, and one guy, what he did is he had a brilliant toddler group. Then when they began to grow out of the toddler group, he started a kids club for that next age bracket. He journeyed with one group over like 18 years, and he carried them all to faith. So we have these problems, don't we? We manage really well on a toddler group, and then there just isn't anything next. So if we start a toddler group, we've got to think, and what's next? So we get to know all these kids. When they start to go to playgroup and school, we need a playgroup group, and then we need an after-school club tea time church. And because you could bring this whole cohort to faith, and by the time they're 18, they're going to be solidly loving and knowing Jesus. That's a child focus. But that's what he showed me. He was so proud. He pulled up this beautiful photograph of this group of like young people that he'd led from age under 5 all the way through to Jesus in their youth age, with an intentional, strategic focus. It's good, isn't it? But the other thing is it's long term. So the other thing I get is people desperately want their church to grow now, so that, we're not good at doing long-term planning. And this is long-term. An under 5-year-old is long-term. But when you see these stats, if we all did some long-term work, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Because we've currently got a 74% reach with another chunk. We would be almost what? Oh, it's so ludicrous, isn't it? Hang on a minute, I should have done that maths. We've got a decent 74, and then we've got a third of the 25. What's a third of 25? Someone do that for me. Someone who's better at math. 8. So add 8 to the 74, we get 82%. We could reach 82% of every under 5 in the nation for Jesus. Anyone up for that? Great. I mean, isn't that amazing? We've got an 82% of reaching one whole generation for Jesus. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing, isn't it? And we could put it front and center, and we could say, we're going to invest, and we're in this for the long haul, we're not going anywhere, and we're going to grow from that cohort all the way through. We're going to have great youth groups, even in 10 years' time, we're going to have great youth groups. We've got a dearth of youth groups. We don't have to have a dearth of youth groups. So if we were intentional all the way to our youth group, we could do something different. I just get excited. I get so excited. The stats are amazing. So if you go back to where we started in Matthew 9, what have we learned? The harvest is, hey, Jesus was right. Jesus was right. And the final thing I just want to say is right now is the time. Right now is the time for all of this. Things that you and I gave up doing. I mean, I don't know how many of you are still knocking doors. We kind of gave up knocking doors. Go back and knock the doors. Okay. So someone's saying, what would you say are the best strategies? Loads of the things we forgot to do, we've stopped doing. When did you last do a women's event, evangelistic women's event, by the way? The ones with the tablecloths, the tea, and the guest speaker. So one of the churches I went, and I did Talking Jesus, and I did some of this stuff, and they went, oh, goodness. They went, if this is real, we're going to have to do something. I'm like, yes. We could do a women's event. Great. Will you come back and speak? Okay, I'll come back and speak. And they invited their friends, and to their amazement, all of their friends rocked up. Because basically the times have changed because God's on the move. We're back at Narnia. So the things we stopped doing because they didn't work, I'm Gen X, they're cynical. So we stopped doing this. But everybody's taken such a battering that they are open to the gospel now, and we can't wait 5 years. So please, how about a men's event and a women's? It is so old school. It's just laugh out loud. And go to your toddler group and say, what could we run as would you like to do Exploring Faith? Do you want to do a Discovery Bible course? Do you know the Bible is just so popular at the moment? The younger generation can't get their hands on enough Bibles. So they're really interested. They're going to charity shops and buying them for themselves because we aren't giving them out. So we did some surveys with YWAM. This is a postcard version, and we have these beautiful contemporary versions with pictures all the way through, which we do really cheaply so that everybody in the UK can fall over a gospel and the life of Jesus. And YWAM stood in an urban centre talking to the younger generation about the Bible, doing a little Bible survey. I'm just putting it into Google so that anyone can have it. And I had all these little questions. The last question I threw in rather cheekily was, would you like to read the Bible with someone? 40% of all the people who stopped said yes. They had to stop doing the research because there weren't any Christians to read the Bible with any non-Christians. So they had to stop. They had to stop asking. Because none of us had any time. We couldn't possibly read the Bible with a non-Christian. It's really interesting, isn't it? So they stopped. Could we start that? So we were having a chat today. I said, I haven't come with any great strategies. I'm probably saying, try some of the things that you gave up doing. You know, that lemon tea, which just sounds hilarious, doesn't it? The lemon tea with the lemon table. It was When Life Gives You Lemons. That was the title. When Life Gives You Lemons. You know, the sort of thing we'd be like, oh my word. We've got lemon cake. We've got lemon drizzle. And we're going to talk about Jesus. Do you know what they all came? People came down the front, desperate to find out more. I didn't take enough Gospels with me for all the women who wanted one. I, weird Bible woman, didn't take enough Gospels with me for all the people who wanted one. So my big encouragement is, this is a huge target audience. Be strategic. But the time is now. And the window is now, and the opportunity is now. You could probably try almost anything, because we know that it's now one in 3 of the people who've had a conversation with a Christian who want to know more about Jesus, and it's about 1 in 3 of people who've had a conversation with a Christian who want to experience or encounter Jesus. So they're sitting there like that woman who thinks, how many craft clubs have I got to go to? And we're sitting on this side, but this is an openness, and it's absolutely huge in this demographic of parents with children under the age of 5. So we could go do some harvesting. We do need to pray for labourers. That is exactly, as Jesus said, where our problem is. Great. I think I'm done.
Rachel, thank you so much. My watch says we still have a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Would you be prepared to take some
questions? Yeah.
Because there are some, you talked about misinformation.
Yes.
There are some myths that I think some of us are living with about, absent cohorts in the church and missing generations, all that kind of thing. Would you like to comment on that?
So there isn't a missing generation in the Church of Jesus Christ, just so that you know that. So we have equal representation when it comes to practicing Christians. So these are the people who read their Bibles, pray, and are part of a worshipping community. We're 6% of the UK population who fit into that description. We're 10% in London who fit into that description. And we're equal across every generational cohort. So we're not missing like 18 to 24-year-olds. They're not missing. They're probably not missing actually hopefully from a lot of your churches, it would be my guess. They're also really hungry. But so again, we just had misinformation. We're not in decline. So since 2015 to 2022, we've held at 6%. So we're not declining. And that's because what we were measuring before is cultural Christianity. So when you looked at the census data, we all had that headline, under 50%. We're declining in cultural Christianity. So more people who are ticking of no religion than just ticking nominally, I'm a Christian. But as we've just seen, they're not closed to the gospel. They're just ticking no religion. Does that make sense? They're just not quite sure where they affiliate. And so that's the change we're seeing. But when it comes to the Church of Jesus Christ in the UK, since 2015 to 2022, we're not in decline. And we still have not, and we're still holding up across every generational cohort. Two more exciting facts,
And the 6% are Bible reading.
They're Bible reading, praying, and part of a worshipping community. They also held through the pandemic. So another piece of research I did, those basically people with good spiritual habits survived the pandemic. The people that we lost were the people who probably weren't reading their Bibles. So they didn't have the ability to feed themselves. So there's a discipleship task. So in every church, if you did that survey, you would see a discipleship task as well.
That is fascinating.
As we know.
It's reading your Bible that can get you through the pandemic.
Yeah, reading the Bible got you through the pandemic as a Christian. And reading the Bible, can bring you to faith. So some of the biggest stats on the key influences on bringing us to faith, one of the biggest stats is the Bible. Unsurprising. So I am now mad Bible woman. Because, of course, when I read the Bible every day, the Lord speaks to me. So there's nothing in the way. He just speaks to me. And that is that place of encounter. And so we just need to, I don't know why, but probably when I was ordering. So I've only got a couple of postcodes, but do have a look on it. We have these beautiful Luke and Mark's Gospels that if you like, you can get them in bulk as cheap as we can possibly get them to you. So we're not like a publishing company that's we're trying to just get Jesus to people. And that's because we did another piece of, when they did the Bible survey in Bristol, they discovered that the only thing that mattered to the younger generation was that it was easy to read and the design. Yeah. And design is a language. If you care about it, it is well designed. It's just a language. Hand it to them in another language than hand it to them in a naff, that slightly curling paper, cheap variety. We think, cheap, as many as possible. That is not their language. Their language is beautiful. I need to want to have this on my coffee table. So that's what we've produced, because we know then they will want it and they'll treasure it and they'll keep it and they'll put it on their bedside table, and when they need it, they'll read it. So that's something else we've learned from research. So I love research. We try to do the research and then work out what we need to do to help the church from the research. Does that make sense? We need beautiful looking gospels. Great, we'll produce them. We need stories that help under fives. Great, we'll do that.
Brilliant. And you mentioned a stat about London, the percentage of people that believe in the resurrection of Christ.
I think we're at about 24%? Have you seen our resurrection stats? If you open that Talking Jesus report, sort of across the UK, it's about 16% who believe word for word in the resurrection of Jesus. That in itself is a jaw dropper, isn't it? We did something called Alive. We'd love you to join with Alive. We've created a film series, 5 resurrection encounters of Jesus, which you can run after Easter. We need to make Easter like the FA Cup final for the church. Yeah. We need to knock it out of the park and hit it in the goal. There are loads of people who want an invite to Easter. So we make Christmas big, let's make Easter even bigger.
Yeah, come on.
There's a lot of noise at Christmas. It competes with lots of other things. We have less competition at Easter. We really need to go for it. So across your towns, getting all your churches together, and so it's called Alive. We have like a newspaper that can go through every door. We have a film series you can invite people to. I ran it. It was just, people absolutely loved it. It goes through the felt needs and then into how Jesus, like Mary, discovered, what she went through. It has it sort of tangible, personal. You can see an episode on our YouTube channel, so you can watch episode 3, all about peace. But it goes through those encounters, but explains how people can encounter the risen Jesus today in the same way.
Fantastic. Question? Neville?
Have you done any research on how people react to QR codes? I'll tell you why, because I've just created a video, or our church has, using AI, and we can use QR codes to take it out to our neighbourhood. Yeah. And I talked to a number of people, perhaps because I talked to less techie people, but I have a lot of people said, "Oh, I don't know what to do with this."
Yeah, again, it'll be generational. Like, I'm not digital native, so I know I'm a target audience probably for the Evening Standard, which is now going down to once a week in London because there are less of me and nobody else will get the news that way, and so they'd be happy to be on YouTube. But so it depends who you're targeting. If you're targeting under the age of 35, they'll be fine with a QR code. If you're targeting over, they might be all at sea, and that's just because we're not digitally native.
Like Kevin.
So yeah, and that's okay. So it's who are you targeting is the question.
What might be an alternative then? So we've got this. So we've got a video, and I'm just thinking, actually, we'll do another one advertising our kids' stuff.
Perfect.
But if you're going to sort of say we're thinking about doing it on a postcard, taking it out. If it's got a QR code, and then there's a lot of people that aren't able to access it, other alternatives that you can combine it with easily?
Yeah, so you could ask, my response would probably you need to find two people. You need to find somebody who struggles with QR codes, and then you need to find a digital native, because you're going to need two bits of skill here. You ask the person who can't do QR codes, what do you do? Probably Google. They probably manage Google. So it might be that there's something that you put into Google this, and you will find it. That's my guess. And then you need to check that will actually work with someone who's 14, because they'll know how to make it work. I mean, they won't understand the person who can't use the QR code. So basically what I know is do the research. So other than me guessing, go do the I haven't got the research to my fingertips, but you go and do the research. So you talk to 3 people who are not happy with QR codes. Are you any good at Google? Do they use Google? My hunch is they will, because that is something we've seen. So we know if people are looking to find out more about the Christian faith, the number one place people will go is Google. That's why we need to be online. Because the number one place anyone is going to go to find out about Jesus is they're going to go to Google. After that, it's then YouTube is all the younger generation. They don't use Google. They only they use YouTube. But then it's all right because the Bible and local churches come out really strongly as well. So we're in with a chance. But yeah, I would go to those people who you know have got the problem and say, how do you find your information? And then they probably use Google, is what I think, but I don't know for sure.
James, can I just jump in here? Yeah, MC, can I read this out for you, MC? Yeah. MC from a pastor at Nantwich, one of the pastors there. He says, I'm at Nantwich Elim Church in Cheshire. We do what you mentioned every week as an example. We sing Jesus, Love is Very Wonderful every week. We've got crafts, snacks and sing-alongs. Our goal is to bring together 3 generations. It's fascinating. For the last 7 years, we've focused on under 5 ministry, just like you mentioned. And as a result, we're seeing the church grow. And he said he's got materials that you can also share as well, so that's brilliant. And while I'm at that as well, the Talking Jesus research, I presented that in January here and went through a lot of your stuff and just slimmed it down for some of the pertinent, like a message for a Sunday morning. If anyone wants that, gives all the data. I think I've given it to you, Richard. I can share it with anybody if they want that, just to help for a Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's great. Take it, use it. That's the thing. And probably Talking Jesus is probably more church-wide friendly.
Yeah, it was, but I used it to drill into focus on this as well because we wanted to grow in this area. So, yeah.
Well done. Yeah. And that's it. Just use, take it away because we can't go everywhere. There's a little 2-minute animation as well on Talking Jesus that you can use. It's just 2 minutes, pertinent facts. Boom, 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 boom.
I just wondered, Rachel, if you could just explain to Kevin what Google is.
Oh, dear.
Question over here.
I just wanted to ask where you can get your books from.
Yeah, well done. It's often what to say. Slide. Oh, now I've lost the number. The last slide, the very last slide, if you put that up. Basically, we have a shop. So, but you can, if you take what, we've got some there, a selection at the back, please just take one away with you so that it reminds you that these exist. You can choose Christmas, Easter, Noah. It's all very exciting. Lost and Found is coming out now. And then you can find them on our shop. If you wanted to, I don't know how far across the region you are. So if you decide you're really going to go for it and you want to give out 1,000 of these at Easter or Christmas or something, a pallet is by far the best way to get a delivery. So if you were going big, you wanted to do schools, or you wanted just 5 churches together to order, then basically it's the delivery cost we just can't get down because it's the cost of a man and a van. Whereas we get this down as much as we can on print and cost. And so the bigger you go, the better. But if you begin to order like 1,000, you get in touch, we can give you like a even better deal, but you can do it. So that's what I'm doing whenever I'm speaking, is saying, if people really want something like this, we can get that together. So often people they say, oh, we want 500 or 1,000 gospels, then we can get the price right down and we can stick them on a pallet. And then they can come up and then everyone can come and collect what they want. And because that's our biggest delivery cost. So we can then get them down to our sort of, we don't really have trade, but our equivalent of trade price. So we have a bulk buy price, which is really as cheap as we can get. So like Mark's Gospel is £1.25 when you buy in bulk. And then you can have a pallet. So you could have a pallet with, these are probably the most, Sheffield Diocese are about to order 200 of these and 500 of these, and they'll all go on a pallet, and then people can come and collect them. So it might be something you could do together just to get them down. But they're all on the shop, and you can have a little look, and I've got a whole selection on the back so that you can all remember to take away a Happy Land book, where to find it.
Any more questions before we wrap up? Malcolm?
Thank you. Just a comment, Rachel. You probably come across Justin Brierly's surprising rebirth of belief in God.
Yes.
Would tie in with what you're seeing?
Yeah, so basically, the younger generation is open and hungry. And we just need to go do some harvesting. Yeah. And so we're getting that, and we're getting things like, Tom Holland. We're getting more and more information. Oh, I wish I remembered... Jordan Peterson. So it's just intriguing. There is something happening. This generation, what they've been given and they've discovered is bankrupt. They're the most anxious generation. You talked about, I saw them like sheep without a shepherd. They were harassed and helpless. I just love this passage because I feel it talks about that generation. They are harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. They are anxious. They are, and that what they've been given, they've got those wells with no water. They've been given wells with no water. And I really believe that's why they are spiritually searching. I was with Nes Wilson Pioneer. They have a big student church at Loughborough University. And they were like, where are all the Bibles going? And what they realised is that whilst they have 100 students in their student church, and whilst that student church is on, the non-Christian students from the campus are coming in and taking Bibles away. They're having to now buy Bibles because they're just taking away Bibles to read, and then they come back later when they've read the Bible. Who knew? So there is just this incredible hunger that is happening, and it's now.
It's fantastic.
And this is a little booklet on it. We have a well-being series as well that some churches have found is a really easy invite. So it's a Christian view of well-being. People have run that and found that really useful. Again, it's a film series. We had Simon Thomas and Joanna, so we had really good presenters on that, proper presenters.
Just to back that up, one of my other hats is chaplain to the Army Cadet Force. And at summer camp last year, I took hundreds of Bibles. And we were told for the faith slot, you've got 10 minutes, whatever. They asked me to do that 10 minutes twice again. I said, I'm reading from a Bible, gave the gospel within restrictions. Said, if you want one, you've got to come down to where they are, talk to a chaplain, and we'll chat to you, and you can have one. Every Bible went.
Amen.
Yeah,
Amen. Isn't it amazing?
I'm talking hundreds.
Hundreds and hundreds, yeah.
And adult volunteers as well.
Yeah.
And it didn't end there. I was out on a navigation walk, helping out, and one of the adult volunteers came to me. He says, Des, I've got to tell you this story. He says, my group kept stopping and chatting. I wonder what was happening. Were they lost? So I went up to see if they needed help with the map. He said, they'd all had these little Bibles they got from you, and they were reading verses to each other out on this 10-mile walk.
Yeah.
These are non-Christian kids.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? I mean, it is amazing. We did. I wrote a book about Christmas. Again, it's good for, it's slightly above this age bracket, but it's family focused. And what this one church pastor got in touch with me, he said, I never got a copy. He said, I did want a copy. I didn't get a copy because the non-Christians were giving it to their friends and coming back to the church in the week to get more copies of this book about Christmas. to give out. So it's not the non-Christians are actually doing the work of evangelism. They're the ones stopping, reading the Bible. They're giving out that the book was, they were giving out the gift of Christmas book to all their non-Christian friends because there is a hunger. So it's just beautiful, isn't it? So it's like we're sort of, it is now, and it is really exciting. But yeah, he was that. It's that actually the non-Christians are almost doing the job. They're the ones now giving out the books. So again, that's amazing. Yeah. Anyway, you can find out all about us. Do stay in touch. We'd love to be in touch. This is our little e-news email. You don't have to read it all the time, but at least you'll remember that we exist and you can find things. And like things like the Christmas book it was really, we got beautiful designer in, and we found people just loved it. So it has verses all the way through and explains Christmas, and it has a prayer at the end that people can pray. I mean, and it just disappeared. People just loved it. So my dad went up and down the street giving it in at shops who all loved it. Just non-Christian shops all took a stack and wanted to give them away. So it's just, it's like we've got out of tune, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so this thing has moved, and we're still living in the land where it's hard, and it just isn't anymore. So the encouragement to all of you and all of your churches is we need even some of the things we gave up doing, like knocking on the doors or just standing in the street with Bibles or all of these really or 11 afternoon teas, they're all seeing fruit. And it's not to do because we've got a new funky technique. It's just that the Lord, in his mercy and in his grace, has seen a generation of people who are harassed and helpless. And he has just decided, I just feel it's answer to many, many prayers, I think is what it is. Not me, not technique, not research. It's just the Lord has decided he is going to reach a nation. He's going to reach a nation. He's going to reach that generation.
Fantastic. Wow.
Amen.
Rachel, thank you so much. Could we pray for you just before you go? Could we all stand together?